Oh, Shadow Turtle, how's it going? Ooh. Ooh. All right. Let's see if we can figure out masks in one stream. Just my programming laptop keeps crashing. It's weird. Yeah, that does sound like it's annoying. Is it overheating? Coffee. Okay, so what we're doing right now is we're implementing masking in the draw step. The GUI renderer crashes. The GUI renderer of what? Windows? Linux. Oh, okay. Yeah, I've never used Linux, so I don't know anything about that. I used it once. I was trying to dual boot my computer with Linux, and I ended up almost like wiping my entire computer. And I broke the boot manager, and I couldn't launch Windows anymore. So that was fun. But hey, at least I learned some stuff there, I suppose. I'm sick and tired of micro slops. I'm trying out Linux for my new working laptop. Yeah, I mean that's fair. I'm having an issue right now where I use an image viewer program called Nomax, and every time I open an image, it wants me to like reset file associations, and when I click OK, it opens up the file associations or like the default programs window, and then it shows it there in images, and I click images to like choose it again, but you can't actually like pick any program you want to just open when you click images. It has to like be an approved Windows program from the Windows App Store, and there's no button to actually select anything else. I hate stuff like that. I hate retard proofing so much, more than anything else. I think I hate all the retard proofing they're doing in Windows. That's like what's making it unusable, because you can't do anything. Okay, so What are we doing here? Render target. Recursive mask. Entity RT. I don't think we need the entity render target. I'm just thinking. And looking at the hippo. I'm just trying to think of if how much do I actually need to interrupt the draw step versus just employing a shader. Let's see. In the entity mask. No, let's see. Mask. You have to pass in the effect for the recursive mask. But the question is, should it simply be as easy as I should just always have a mask in my samplers in my bright batch? Oh, that's piss. Soon there will be DDD. Okay, what's happening? Sounds good. Only 3k points more? Alright. That's good. So let's see. I'm just trying to think of, could I do masking in a way where we don't really have to do anything here? But go back to game 1. Where is it set? Here. This is where the input mask is set. So this is set in the effect. Let's see. Oh. Okay, no, so it doesn't matter. I'm gonna have to do sprite batch.end before we can change anything in the effect. And if that's the case, then there's no use trying to, or no point in trying to over optimize it. But like I said, I think for now, we should hide a lot of these. And then let's also hide that. Wait, what? Why? What? Why is there an error inside of some bullshit? What is this? Failed to parse entitymask.fx. Okay, how about now? I wonder... Let's try that. Failed to parse entitymask.fx. $7.14. Unexpected token D found. Expected nonlinear point anisotropic. 7.14. That should be right. Okay. So you don't do this. You just do this. Build min mag mip point. Of course. Of course you can't do anything that it says on the Microsoft website because it's not correct. On the float literals. Why should the float literals just be 1? Yeah. Okay. Unexpected token M found. 714. Min mag mip point. Expected semicolon. Closed bracket. Expected non-linear point. So this should just be point. Is that what you're telling me? Border color. Expected hex color. Why does it feel like none of these things were in the documentation at all? Okay, now what? Incorrect number of arguments to numeric type constructor. 4339, 4349. 43 here, yeah. Okay. Error. Why would that throw an error? Parameter is incorrect. Alright, now we're gonna run into a bunch of just like... Just compile issues for this. So apparently there's probably there might be an issue with my defines. Say try bumping it to this. No. That didn't work. The sampler state block. Why would the sampler state block be the issue? What? Alright. And then you're saying you load the recursive mask. Sampler state. Texture address mode dot border. Now these should just be commas. Border color, no, it should be color dot white. And then sampler states 1. Huh? Graphics device dot sampler states 1. Why is it 1? Why is it sampler states 1? Because sampler states 0 is the slot that Sprite Batch uses internally for the main sprite texture. So you don't want to touch that. Your mask sampler is bound to S1. What are you talking about? Okay. This should be 0. Does it run now? No. But I saved it, right? Okay, now we got past that. Okay, so now we get game.run cannot call a present when a render target is active. Okay. Graphics device dot render target null. All right, there we go. Now we have nothing, which is what I want at the moment. And then what we want to do is I just want to test the shader to see if we can get it to function. Hold on. There. But so here we need to set render target screen RTE. It's set to cornflower blue. Why is it... I'm confused as to why we're not getting it, why it's not cornflower blue. Here, Yeah, okay. This is what we're missing. This is the screen RT. And that's how you draw that. This is how we want to draw all of them. Because now it's going to be blue. How about now? There we go, now it's blue. Okay. So I don't want to draw this. But we want to draw it like that. What I do want to draw is... I want to draw... the... Let's just start with the mask. No, it's the recursive mask that really matters. Do you think Sprite Batch can draw a circle? Or does that have to be a texture? Rectangle. Okay. Okay, so how do we actually draw something here? We're gonna do something like this. Set render target recursive mask RT. Then we're gonna clear it as black. I mean, I don't know. Because we could just, like, using the black is kind of the same as using, because we could set it to transparent, right? And what transparent does is it sets it to have a 0 alpha element, while black is 0 in everything except for the alpha, which is max. So if we set it to transparent, we can use the alpha to multiply anything else. And then what we do is we just write in alpha, the alpha channel. And what I was messing with before, up here maybe, here, was setting the mask RT to only have one 32-bit red channel. Because that way you write a color that's only one color. But it doesn't really matter. And it might even complicate things, maybe. So I think just setting this as RGBA 32. Oh, that's not what it is. What's RGBA 10 10 10 2? Two-bit alpha channel. Isn't that weird? Why doesn't it have like a normal 32-bit alpha? Okay, there. Right, and then what we have to do is we have to say sprite batch.begin sprite batch.draw it only wait, sprite batch only takes textures. Okay, so we have the white pixel, and we're gonna draw the white pixel. Well, if we're drawing the white pixel, then I want to set this to black, because then we're not using the alpha channel. Then we're just using like the red channel. We're drawing the white pixel to a new rectangle. Let's just say like 50, 50, 200, 200. And the color is color.white. Right batch.end. And then we write the recursive mask. And then what? Value cannot be null. Why is white pixel null? I guess we didn't load it. White pixel equals that's a texture. New texture 2D graphics device. Width 1, height 1. What else does it have? Surface format, bitmap. Nah. That's all it needs. And then we need a color 32. White pixel dot set data new color dot white. All right. So then we have a white pixel there. Try again. That doesn't work. Recursive mask RT. We're supposed to be writing hold on. What is that? Why does that work? There's an implicit cast from a vector 2, 0 to a rect. Interesting. Oh. Okay, so that draws. So why doesn't this draw? It's super weird because why wouldn't it? Why wouldn't this draw? Because that's what I was drawing before. And that worked. Draw viewport offset. But I mean, if I have a render texture that's the same size as the screen, then I should just need to draw it like from 0 and that's it. That should just always work. I don't really know why I was doing all of this. Okay, so now we are writing to the recursive mask RT, right? And then what we would need to do is we need to say don't know. Entity mask. What is it called? Recursive mask effect. And now the idea is that what are we doing here now? We have a white mask in the middle. And this should just like... I actually don't know what I'm doing here. This needs to be subtracted. I feel like this shader needs to have modes. Okay, so because a recursive mask can't grow. Like, you can't have a recursive mask that then becomes or like allows you to see more the further it goes. The recursive mask can only shrink in size. So what it needs what's the logic here? Like, it's like the first draw needs to just draw an allowed area. But then for the second draw, it has to like flip it, and now it just subtracts. So the first one has to add, and then the other ones have to subtract. No, I finished all of the coffee before refilling. I'm just trying to think of if there's a way to do it that just lets me write to it the same way every single time. But it doesn't feel like that's the case. Because... Um... Actually, is it just gonna be like this? I'm trying to make this make sense in my brain, because when we're masking, if we're masking, let's say the mask is actually about allowing. So maybe we do it like this. Maybe not. Should it be black? I've been overthinking this the whole time. I think maybe. Yeah. Because let's say that we have a mask here. Let's actually use this. We have a mask here. This now allows this area to draw. And that's gonna be like, let's say you have a window here. Like this is a window. And what does that mean? Yeah, it means that only this section of it gets drawn, right? And then the fact that we have a recursive window, or a recursive... Oh, here's the next issue. Sheet. Yeah, I think the way it has to work, more or less, is that in the component, we create a mask, and that mask will be a texture plus a 2D position. And if it's recursive, we simply pass that down to children until there's another recursive mask. But that doesn't work. That doesn't work either. Hello, Pollock, how's it going? Man, this is so hard. Right now I'm working on is it easy to make it run? Let me see here. I'm doing a bunch of testing here right now. Let's see. Does that work? Or is there something missing? There's a thing missing. Hold on, I just want to see if I can get it to run. But I'm making kind of like a strategy game, role-playing game hybrid. I don't think that's gonna be enough. No. Time manager. Like, where does this come from? Time manager draw. I don't know how to find call chain. Call stack. Game 1. Time manager. What made you go for MonoGame? I don't want to use Godot, and I don't like using Unity's stuff, really. I just end up making my own things in Unity regardless, so might as well go with a less restrictive framework. Time manager. Begin. Main controller dot draw. Begin. Oh, here. What? Begin cannot be called until end has been called. Why aren't you calling end then? I mean, what? Static GUI. Begin. Draw. And then here we need a write batch.end. Holy shit! Write batch.begin. There we go. All right. It doesn't work properly. I have some buttons here that shouldn't be there. But yeah, so this is where we are right now. We've got hexagons and stuff you can click. You can scroll around, zoom in. I've got some windows. Got a character window here. If you click inside of an outlined area here, you can get a test character pulled in there. Though it's supposed to be kind of like Crusader Kings or something, where an area, or I call them domains at the moment, just for it to be kind of like a neutral term. And then there might be a bunch of characters in there that you might be able to look at in a list or something. And that's what I'm doing right now. I'm trying to create a list, which means I'm trying to create something like Unity's scroll view that just lets me mask an area so that I can scroll around a window in there. And that means implementing masking as a whole, and that's where we're stuck now. And it's ass. So let's disable these again. Let's test draw. Let's do this. Makes it easier to get rid of. There. Oof. Ho, 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 ho. Did I release any games before? No. But I've been working on a game in Unity for quite a while. Called Legends of Terrestria. But that doesn't run right now either. Let's see. How could it be cold? This one? Yeah. We got some stuff here. We made a video ages ago. So here I'm working on a game. It's a turn-based tactics game. And we're talking about it here a bit. And basically it's like a voxel engine, but it's using orthographic like an orthographic camera and pixel art textures for the voxel textures. And if you look here, like I have like shadow casting on the walls of the buildings. The buildings are casting their own shadows. So are the characters, which is, yeah, it's got some issues, but we'll solve those hopefully. And which means you can walk inside of buildings. You can see if I pull the character inside, then it like reveals the building and stuff like that. And there's also like a Z or a height or Z axis. Well, a Z or Y axis depending on what you're used to, I suppose. So you can have like multiple floors in buildings, and you can walk up and down. And I'm also implementing like abilities and stuff here, targeting. Are we gonna do anything? Nope. 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 Or did I already do something? No, I don't think so. What? Is this like an older one? Maybe it is. Anyway, yeah. I was implementing things like physics, sort of, for like having effects that can like push and pull units and like shoot them away in certain directions along the grid based on like if you have a spell that like creates some kind of like vortex or something that pushes out and you can push the characters away and stuff. But yeah, that's about how far we are there. This is a side project that I'm working on. And I've also done some like 3D ray marching engines like Minecraft-y, but I was going too advanced with that, so I kind of decided to make something simpler because I don't have time to work on something that complicated. Yeah. So this is what we want in here, I think. Yes. And so what we'll do here is we'll say test draw up here, and then we just return. No, here we do base dot draw game time, and then we return. Yeah, okay, now we're drawing that. But how do I solve this? This is so hard. Because what I want is, I want to be able to recursively draw with the mask. And the issue then is like, if you have an object, you have like, this is the root object, and the root object has a mask on it, right? It's got a mask. Maybe the mask looks like this, or whatever. And then you want to draw to a child. Then this mask should apply to the child as well, right? And then if this child, well, let's say there's another child. Let's say there's another child. But this child has its own mask. That means we can get rid of this mask, and this child has a mask that looks like this or something. I don't know. That means that we can just... No. Because now these masks kind of have to be combined, I think. And that's where I'm struggling right now, because... I don't know what the best way to do this is. Because combining the masks is like extremely heavy. Because I would have to do something like... we would have to add them to like a list. And then... When we do this, the first time we find a texture, what we could do is I could render the mask to a render texture. So we render texture this, right? And then here, because it doesn't change, we just keep the render texture. And then when we come over here, this is now new. So now we need to create a new render texture. Or I need to update the render texture. Right? We update the render texture with the new stuff. And then if there are even more children, then we just keep going down. I guess. But the issue is that, okay, sure, but what if this object has multiple children? Like that's the issue. So now we have a child here too, and once we've finished drawing this thing, if I just draw to a render texture, then once we're here, we'll have a render texture that's like a combination of these two. And then when I come back here, I don't have the render texture anymore. So I guess then we have to clear the render texture and like start over for every child. And like that's why you need to have a list, because the same could be true here, right? So like what if this object also has a child? Then like what do you clear to? So you need to have like a list of masks that is like the base that you reset your mask to every time. And this is what is weird. I don't know what a good way to do this is, really. Um, yeah. Yes. All right. I'll be right back, and then we'll try a new method here, maybe. All right. The hell is an abstract class? I've never seen or used that before. So the question is, I have a structs file, right? But, and that's obvious, that's just where structs are stored. But what about classes that function like structs? What do you call that? Do you just call that one classes? I feel like that's a little weird. Classes. An abstract class is a class that can't be instantiated directly. Okay. I see. Yeah. Something like that. And then in entity, in draw, we'll pass in a list of mask descriptor. And it's not gonna be null. We're gonna pass it in from main controller, and it's gonna have public list mask descriptor mask list equals new list. And we're gonna pass that in here, mask list. We're also gonna say mask list.clear. Pretty much. And then in each entity, we'll actually store texture 2D mask. Do I want to do that? I don't like adding things to the entity. But maybe it's fine. I just don't know if I want to do this, but like if I do this, I could generate a mask on each object. From its components. And then you can just store the mask here. No, I don't want to create render targets at various sizes. Because I need to combine some textures. And so generating textures is bad. Creating new render targets is bad. The fuck do I do then? Fuck you. But I mean, it's only meant to be done once. Yeah, so we should be able to do set data, but that's such a pain in the ass, dude. Creating, like generating a circle using a for loop and set data. Oh my god. But yeah, we need something like a public texture 2D. No, it doesn't need to return anything. We can just set it here. Actually, I don't know. Like, what is the best approach? Because I like to make functions just handle themselves. I feel like this could just be a void. So if we just say like generate mask generate component mask composite. And then what we need to do is we need to say for component list dot count. We need to say list mask descriptor masks equals new list. And then we say if component list I dot has dot component flags dot has flag has draw mask. Then we'll say masks dot add component list I dot oh, we don't have anything there really. Right masks. We need like a fetch mask. And that needs a mask descriptor. and should just return null. And then in the mask, for example, we then do public override mask descriptor what was it? Fetch mask. Then here we're gonna have a public mask descriptor mask descriptor. Now let's just call it mask. And then we return mask. And that's it. Fetch mask. I'm gonna say mask descriptor nah, let's just do that. That way maybe we'll find some issues. And once we have all the masks, then this is so tedious. Oh my god. Basically, we're gonna have to create the mask size here. But it's also a question of like, we need to go in here somehow, and we need to say public virtual rectangle get bounds. Return new rectangle and then here a rect mask will say public override rectangle get bounds, and the bounds will actually be I think in every case it should actually just return a vector 2. And then we just return vec2i.0. Because the mask should be applied from the bottom left and up, I think. Oh, man. Oh, that doesn't work either. It should return a rect. So for the rectangle, the bounds is just gonna be return rect. And for the circle, now how do you calculate that? It's just center plus radius, right? So you say new rectangle and here you say center dot x minus radius, center dot y minus radius. Here it's center dot x plus radius, center dot y plus radius. Cannot convert from float to int. How about fuck you? And the texture mask is just return bounds. And then you do rectangle equal temp rect equals masks I dot get bounds, and then we're gonna say if I equals 0, then we'll say mask size equals temp rect. Else, we're gonna say if mask size dot x, actually if temp rect dot x is less than mask size dot x, then mask size dot x equals temp rect dot x. And then this is width. This is height. Right, then we generate a rect there for how big it should be. And then what we need to do is Here we're gonna say if masks.count equals 0, then we just return. We'll say mask equals null. And then we're gonna say texture 2D. Well, let's go with color first. Need a color array equals new color, and it's gonna be mask size dot width times mask size dot height. For loop through it. I don't know what the fuck it's doing. Just give me the fucking for loop, you stupid bitch. There. Pull array dot length. Pull array I equals new color. I don't know what it should be set to initially. Should it be set to 0? Or 1? I'm just thinking, like, what should I do with this? Because it doesn't need to be a color array. It could just be like a float array, maybe. Or an int array. It depends if I... Like, should the masks be able to... Like, should the mask be partial? It should be partial. It should be able to be partial. And have, like, very like... It shouldn't just be 1 or 0 when it comes to the transparency. So... The way it has to work, then... is that we set the initial color array oh man, I don't know how to do it. Should I just have positive masks? Because that's how we could do it. Like, now that we've done this here, what we can do is we can say for... Oh my fucking god. It doesn't work! Give me the fucking snippet! You masks.count. And now what we need to do is we need to say rectangle temp rect. We need to say float temp col array, or let's say mask col array, and this is composite col array. And then this is composite size. And then here we have to do something like this again. We get the rect. And we need to get a color array. And here, that's where we want. Here, a public float get color array. Return. You can't return. No, you can return a null. It's an array. And then we have to do this. Get override float array equals new float rect dot width times rect dot height, and then we're gonna say 4 we're just gonna say array I equals 1. Dude, these suggestions are fucking ass today. Ooh. And so we need something similar here. Now here, how do we write this? Oh, this is gonna be so trash. I actually think that the radius should be an integer. And the center should be a vec2i. No, we don't need this. And because of that, then we can just say that the array should be radius times it's radius times radius times radius times radius. Does that make sense? No, no, it doesn't. It's radius times 2 times radius times 2. Or is that the same? I don't know. Like a radius. Let's say that the radius is 4. 4 times 4 times 4 times 4. That's 256. And then if you just do 8 times 8, that's 64. Yeah, no, it's nowhere near the same thing. But 4 times 4 times 4, that's 64. Or is that just a coincidence? What if we make it like 7 times 7 times 7? 343, 7 times 2. So 14 times 14. But that was just a coincidence. Okay. So it needs to be this. This is the radius. And then we go through the array length. And we need to set it to black. But what we need to do now is I think we should actually do a for y x. Just because I think that will be easier to logic out. And then this is gonna be also array.length. So this is gonna be x plus y times array.length. And then what we need to do is we need to say we need to get the magnitude. Right? How did you get that? So it's gonna be if vec2i current position equals vec2i dot 0. And then here we're gonna do vec2i dot set xy. No. If so it needs to be if center minus current position How do you get the magnitude? Let's see. Structs. Vec to I. Just nab that. That should be... I think that should make sense. So if the length from there to the, like, you have the current position, say the position is over here, and you subtract that, and the magnitude is always positive, right? Yeah. So as long as it is less than the radius, then we'll say it's 1F. Else, do this. Right? I think that should work. And then as for the texture, it's pretty much just gonna be like this then. Except because it's a texture, you just say array equals texture.getData. Okay, well that sucks a bit. I mean, maybe it should just be a bunch of colors that we're returning. I just didn't want... I just wanted to avoid it being like 4 values. Oh. So does this one. Oh. Oh, yeah. That makes sense. What? Length squared returns the squared magnitude, not the magnitude itself. So if the actual distance is d, length squared returns d times d. So to avoid a square root, you compare the squared distance against the squared radius. Both sides are squared. Oh. Okay. I guess. Wait, what? Also, I think that since this is a circle, the array should actually be 1 plus radius times radius in size. That way you can have the pixel and then the radius is on top of that. But then we might have to include that somewhere. Perhaps. I'm not sure. Because otherwise, the issue is that if we just do radius plus radius, or radius times radius, then the circle, or the array will always be even in size. But it should always be uneven in size. Because otherwise you cannot have a center point for the circle. The circle check should be relative to the local center of the bounding box. Not the world center. Yeah, obviously. Yeah, I'm doing that. Um, Sure, I guess, yeah. Something like that. No, this doesn't make sense. Needs to be radius times 2 plus 1 times radius times 2 plus 1. That way we have the right array size. What? Oh, yeah. Well... Yeah. Yeah. This is radius times 2. Actually, 1 plus radius times 2. Saying that this is the center. Okay. We're changing this back to a color array. Let's do this here as well. And then here we're gonna say color.black. This composite size. Okay, and then we need another for loop here. That's gonna say composite color array length. Losing brain power. It's draining away from me. No, that's not how we should do it. We should do it like... For X, Y, Z. I don't have that here. No! For Y. Oh, it didn't update it automatically. I don't know why it doesn't do that. And then we need an X. And it's gonna be the temp rect dot height. And it's gonna be the temp rect dot width. And then we're gonna say 2D to 1D. Then we're gonna say temp rect dot x plus x. Temp rect y plus y. And the size is gonna be the composite size dot width. Then we're gonna say composite full array index equals should it be a max? Math f dot max composite col array index and mask col array x y temp rect dot width. And then we just fetch the red. Unless there's like a color.max. No. that returns a byte. Man, how do you write 255 as a byte? Like, you can't just do B. And 0x... Is that really 255? Is that really a byte? I'm not sure. Okay, so apparently you can set... Why does that work? But OXFF doesn't, and it's actually supposed to be a byte? We can actually just do this. That works. I don't know why I was overcomplicating it. Course. And then here we're gonna set texture 2D, new mask equals new texture 2D. Graphics device is not being passed in here. The width is composite size dot width, composite size dot height. Then new mask dot set data composite color array. And that could be done as long as it works. And what do we do then? Yes. We are going to do something along the lines of mask public void set mask descriptor new mask equals new mask, and then we're gonna say base entity dot generate component mask composite. And we're gonna go back to the entity, and we're gonna let's do this. Mask descriptor temp mask disk. Then we're gonna say temp mask disk equals fetch mask, and then we'll say if temp mask disk does not equal null, then we'll do this. And that's it. And then we make this be a getter, and we're gonna say get private set. Something like that. But actually, the mask does need to have a position. I'm not going to be able to figure this out today. Like, I can barely think about this anymore. But it's basically gonna be like, if there's a mask, the mask is just always going to show well, I feel like the mask should contain a boolean that says inverted. I guess. The hard part is that like, let's say you want to have a mask that allows visible where it's white. That works as long as it's somewhere inside of the mask. But what if you want a mask that does the opposite? That it only shows, or it hides whatever is white. Then it changes things, because if you have a mask that only shows in the middle, then you set the sprite sampler in here, the sprite texture sampler, you set its border mode to black. That way, it'll always sample anything outside of the texture as invisible. But then, if you want the other way around, then it has to be the other way around. Then the sprite texture sampler has to sample everything outside of the border as white. Because it's like let's say you have a you just put a black overlay over the screen, and then you want to mask it so that you can only see through a certain point, right? And then the question is, like, how does that work with another composite? Well, I mean, something like that wouldn't have any children. I'm just thinking of... Is there a use case? The number one use case I'm looking for right now is just the ability to only draw like this section of something. And that's drawing white here, and then everything outside is black. And then that would be then a texture that's this size, and then you simply sample the texture, and if you sample outside of it, then it's set to border black. That's it. Very easy. Another way to do it is to, instead of doing the border black thing, you just make sure that any mask texture has a margin, and then you just set the margin to be black or white. That way you can just use the margin that way, and you just sample it as clamp. Both are the same thing. It's just a matter of like what's better. And they're both clunky, because for the border I would have to you would have to stop, and you have to set the parameter on the effect before every call. But on the texture, you have to sit and generate textures that just have an extra border, which isn't that big of a deal either, but it is something you have to code there. Welcome back, Despis. I'm very close to done for today, I think. Well, not for today. Yeah, no, I think we'll play no parade for spice, or 0 parades for spice. But first, I'm gonna go for a little walk. Yeah, sure. Yeah, yes. So, yeah. I'm gonna go to the store, and maybe we'll play after that. We'll see. Maybe I eat first or not, I'm not sure. I'm a little hungry, but I also don't really want to eat this early. I usually eat at around like 8, and it's only 4. But yeah, I don't think I'm gonna get any further here, no matter how much I keep bashing my head against this at the moment, so... Oh... 6 is a good time for food. Yeah, it works. I mean, I really only eat once a day, more or less, unless I'm snacking on something. And I usually just eat, like, after work. And that's it. I might have, like, a dried sausage or something and coffee with butter in it in the morning, but that's it. This is very complicated. And I could have implemented this very easily just to like fix the one issue I wanted. But I'm like, okay, if we're going to implement masking, then let's actually implement masking like properly. And the thing that's making this complicated is mixing different mask types together in a way that makes sense, because it's like a multiplication order, right? And I have a hard time like actually wrapping my head around which order it should be. Because it's like you have a texture, you start out like this, and then you have another texture that's like, that looks like this. Except this one looks like that, and it's got a circle in it. It looks like that. So, like, what is the correct way to multiply these two masks together? And especially since there's an order. Like, this is the first one, which means it should hide this part here. So you just do this. You just write in the blacks, maybe. Yeah, that makes sense. That was easy. Could have just drawn it out earlier. So it's just subtraction. All right. But yeah, I'll be back in a bit. But I don't know when. Until next time, thanks for hanging. Have a good day. Bye-bye.